Yeah, and I think it's a perfect segue, Brett, into what is probably the biggest storyline of the 2020 football season, which is Will Muschamp's job status. Because, like you're saying, the win conversion, everything, it's measured from 2015 to 2019, that window, and 15 being Spurrier's last year, okay, but the rest of that has been Muschamp's tenure. And, my thoughts on Will Muschamp are very well documented on the internet as far as, I'll be honest with you, Brett, I was on Muschamp's side. I won't say that I was a Muschamp guy necessarily, but I certainly wasn't calling for his job or anything going into last season. And then the loss to North Carolina to open the 2019 season broke me. It really did. It broke me. It completely flipped me from supporting Muschamp, thinking, no, you can't fire a coach into his fourth season. You need to give him time to build a program, to I went fully on the fire Muschamp train. I just felt like when you had 8 months to prepare a team to get them ready to go, and your team came out as flat as they did, especially after an embarrassing loss in that exact same stadium in a bowl game, and you have no better effort than that, and you lose to Mac Brown, his first game back in college football. You lose to Sam Howell, who's a true freshman quarterback, a damn good one, I might add, but a true freshman in his very first game, and you let him drive 95 and 98 yards to beat you. That flipped me on the entire Will Muschamp thing. And obviously there were other reasons why South Carolina went 4-8 with the injuries to Jake Bentley and other injuries across the board. But it screamed to me that South Carolina needed to change at the head coaching position. When you take a look at Will Muschamp, I'm not sure what your opinions were on him when he was at Florida or after that whole saga went down. But coming into this season, I don't think there's anybody in the country that would argue he's not on the hot seat. But what's your overall take on the Will Muschamp situation? And again, we're going into a very interesting 2020 football season where we don't know what the season's going to be like, and obviously the pandemic is going to have its effects and stuff like that. And I want to get into that with you a little bit later in the show. But assuming all is normal, what do you think? Because, again, I think this is a put up or shut up type year for Will Muschamp. I think it's a year where if South Carolina misses a bowl game, I think he should be fired. Again, in a normal year, I think he should be fired if South Carolina misses a bowl game. Because like you said, with the win conversion stuff, South Carolina's recruiting at a good enough clip, in my opinion, to at least make a bowl game. There just really is no excuse. They're recruiting well enough, in my opinion, to be a 7-8 win program at minimum, at least on a consistent basis. Are you going to have some down years? Sure. But I think you're recruiting good enough talent to be at that clip. And again, I think that's where a lot of fans' frustration comes, because when you have a team that is talented enough to go on the road and beat Georgia in Athens, which one of the most shocking upsets in the history of college football, I honestly picked Georgia to win that game, I think by 3 touchdowns, and I thought I was being kind of nice. And South kind of goes in there and gets the win. But when you see a team that goes into Athens and beats Georgia, has the talent to do that, but then loses to App State at home, that screams coaching to me. There's nothing else that says to me than coaching. But getting back to the point, your overall take on Will Muschamp, the job he's done thus far, and just your thoughts on him as a whole and the program he's built going into his 5th season in Columbia.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring up the App State loss, because to me that was the final straw. I was actually surprised to see him survive it. So to take a step back, I'm a big believer in letting a coach build his program, give him 3, 4, 5 years, really let his recruiting come through, his coordinators come through. I think it's impossible to really evaluate a coach on a year or two. You see that too often in programs like Tennessee and Texas and Nebraska and Miami. They're constantly firing and rehiring, and kids are transferring. But long story short here, so, you got to give Muschamp some credit. He inherited a pretty tough situation there, filling in for Spurrier. Not only was it the program's high point under Steve Spurrier, but towards that end of the 2015 year, the program was, going through somewhat of a downturn. It was a really rough year. So I give him credit. 2016 as a rebuild. 2017, brought him to 9 wins, got the big bowl win over Michigan. Some wins over Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia in past years. But just seeing it go down from the 17 high point, that should have been the level that it would sustain, be around, like you said, that 7, 8, 9 win mark, especially in a division where Tennessee recently has been down. Florida went, before Mullen was going through some turmoil. So there were wins to be had in this division. Missouri too. There were some wins to be had, and to be putting out, 4-win teams like this, losing to not only UNC, like you mentioned, and that game, that was a lot worse than the 24-20 score would suggest. They were outgained by 200+ yards.
Yep.
And then the App State thing. I mean, I have a ton of respect for the non-AQ and App State. They built a successful transition up to FBS. But I don't care, man. This is an SEC program at home with a top 20 rated roster coming in. You can't lose that game. and then to see blowouts to end the year again. I really thought he'd be fired. So, fast forward to 2020, he's got another coordinator hire here on offense. You can argue he's missed on his first two, maybe third time's a charm, but he's going to need now I can't even use win totals because we don't know how many games we played, but I would have said he needed a 6, 7, 8 win season to survive, but we'll see. Now, the worst part is for him and for Carolina fans, this schedule really heats up. I mean, the draws from the West Division are brutal. And then now you have, I talked about kind of a down period for the SEC East. Those programs are now surging. I mean, Florida is in the playoff discussion along with Georgia. I have Tennessee and Kentucky both in the top 25. So there are not many gimme wins across their schedule this year.